They're lying to you, and they're trying to avoid a worldwide panic. And I guess I can kind of understand that. But what they're doing is they're using a trick of language to report it without actually reporting it. Now, for those of you who in my audience are former military who have gone through NBC training or CBR training, I've heard it referred to as nuclear, biological, chemical, biological, radiological, however you want to refer to it. This is probably going to be stuff you know, so bear with me for a minute. But for the rest of you, there is a fundamental difference between a chemical weapon attack and a biological weapon attack. Chemical weapons, sarin, mustard gas, CS gas, this type of stuff. It's what it says. It's a chemical. You make it in basically a factory, and it can be incredibly deadly, but 99% of it stays on the battlefield, and once you've decontaminated from it, you can move on. You don't normally have to go to any kind of a hospital to decontaminate. The effects of sarin can cause you to need to be in the hospital, but it's a chemical. It's not self-replicating. It doesn't grab legs and start walking and moving its way through refugee populations and into other countries like biological weapons do. Weaponized smallpox, weaponized Marburg and Ebola, these things have the ability to kill on a scale much, much, much greater than chemical weapons do. Now, everybody's seen The Rock, the movie. They're going to drop this canister, these little green canisters over a football game. And yes, in that particular instance, that amount in aerosolized in that area could kill a great many people. But you get weaponized smallpox moving through a population, and you're talking about killing tens of millions of people very, very quickly. Now, sorry for wasting a lot of your time that way, but I think it's important to make the distinction here, because the media is not, when they say this Syrian program or the North Korean program or the Iranian program, they're not talking about just chemical weapons program. They're talking about nuclear program, biological program, chemical weapons program. That's what they're talking about. That's what you need to understand. They're just not using the other two words to save, I guess, room in the story or for ease of reference. Now, why is that important? Well, in the last video I did, I forgot to make a connection for you guys. I was in a hurry to get it done, and I shouldn't have been. But I want to show you something. Now, this is from a book, Iran's Weapons of Mass Destruction, The Real and Potential Threat, Anthony Cordesman and Khalid R. al-Rodan, it looks like. This is a list of all of the biological agents the Iranians are working on weaponizing. Now, some of these are very familiar to you and some of them aren't. But I want you to look right here in the middle. Japanese encephalitis, yellow fever, smallpox, influenza, Q fever. Well, that explains YouTube. West Nile, dengue. VEE is Venezuelan equine encephalitis. They only have this because Hugo Chavez gave it to them 2 years ago. Anyway, when you look at these and then you look at the headlines, you'll see a strange correlation. Japanese encephalitis alert, South Korea. Influenza outbreaks. Sorry about the, there we go. Very, very deadly strain of yellow fever. This is happening all over the world. This is what they're not telling you. This is what they're not reporting. Japanese encephalitis. There is no cure. Related to dengue, yellow fever, West Nile, and spread by mosquitoes. In large, displaced populations, like in Syria, like in Venezuela and Brazil, it runs through these groups of people like wildfire. And once it gets into the refugee population, it'll then get into Western societies. This isn't about them getting terrorists here. This is about them getting dangerous, weaponized bioagents here and vectors. This is what's really going on. This is what was warned of. They've known about this for a long time. Now, this website is WND. I think it's supposed to be a playoff of WMD, but WND is the website. Talks about this Iranian general who has warned of this. And the difference between bioagents is they're very, very hard to distinguish. If somebody next to you has been contaminated with sarin, you're going to know about it very, very, very quickly. If somebody next to you is contaminated with smallpox, depending on the state that they're in, if they're in the early stages, could look just like a cold. They could be right next to you on the bus. You wouldn't know. It talks about the 8 specific agents here: anthrax, encephalitis, the Venezuelan equine one, SARS, Ebola, cholera, smallpox, and plague. Iran, with the help of North Korea, has genetically altered the smallpox virus, which makes current vaccinations useless. This is what's going on that they're not talking about. When they talk about red lines, this is what they're talking about. Outside assistance is both important and difficult to prevent, given the dual-use nature of the materials and equipment being sought. This is what they're doing. And this is why they want to draw the U.S. in over there. This isn't some political machination where, they want to draw the U.S. into a war or to, deep state this or deep state that. What they want to do is they want to create U.S. vectors that can come back here and start contaminating people. Sorry for the wait here, but this is also WND. This is another article where they talk about this, about how they have missiles at the ready, already equipped with this. Bacillus anthracis, encephalitis, and this yellow grain. Listen to this. This third agent, yellow grain, developed with the help of North Korea but named yellow grain by the Iranians, has no smell and upon impact will destroy the body's defensive system. Victims would have a hard time walking or breathing within hours, and slowly their digestive systems would be destroyed, likely followed by death within 48 hours. The source said Iran has provided this agent to the terrorist group Hezbollah to use in artillery shells and rockets, and has armed cluster bombs with it for any confrontation with Israel or America. Now think about this issue in South America, where we know Hezbollah is. It is not beyond the shadow of a doubt. It's not beyond reasonable people to think that they could launch a very short-range missile from Venezuela to Miami, or even from Cuba to Miami. And can you imagine what would happen if they would be able to get something that's not far? We'd never be able to intercept something from Cuba to Miami, ever. We just don't have it. We just don't have the infrastructure down there. It's too short a distance. You guys really need to be prepared for this. The use or even threat of use of biological weapons by Iran, whether bacterium like anthrax, a virus like Venezuelan equine encephalitis, or a mycotoxin like yellow rain, would cross a red line, certainly for Israeli international community. This is what they're trying to do. The Islamic regime has 170 missiles pointed at Tel Aviv. So when you hear about these stories, about the U.S. getting involved here, or about the Israelis bombing this, they're not doing this because they just don't like Syrians or they don't like Arabs. This is something where they're trying to protect the lives of millions and millions of people. Because, look, once this starts going, once this gets into a population, it's over. You'll never stop it. The movies always show these heroic people doing all these heroic things and stopping the mass infection. But it won't happen. And it won't be this thing where everybody turns into zombies in 3 weeks either. It's just going to be this never-ending putting down of brush fires, so to speak, across the country. And talk about destroying the stock market, destroying the economy. It would do it simply because people wouldn't want to go out. They would be suspicious all the time. And you can pack as much heat as you want. You aren't going to shoot a virus. And some of these viruses, you can wear as many masks as you want, ain't going to work. This is what makes them so dangerous. This is why it is so important, in this particular instance, to stop this. If we had the ability to build a wall in a year or 2 years, I would say go for it, but we don't. This is why dumping the money into the Fourth Fleet is so critical, so important. It's about interdiction. Remember, the Admiral of the Fourth Fleet said he only has the resources now to stop 1 in 4 boats coming here that he knows about. Forget the ones he doesn't know about. If there's $25 billion to be spent right now, let's put it into the Fourth Fleet. Let's stop everything coming from the Gulf, everything coming through Florida. Let's put to bed this nonsense down in Venezuela. And as far as the border goes, I'm absolutely for the idea of the military. And I'm not talking about 4,000, I'm talking about 40,000. And I'm not talking about calling up National Guards and trying to, strong-arm governors into. I'm talking about active duty military forces. On patrol, 24 hours a day, with helicopters, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, from the Gulf of Texas all the way to San Diego. With people. And yes, once we've done that, and once we have that, then yes, go in and start in certain areas, begin building infrastructure to deter. This isn't about them coming here and taking our jobs, or them coming here and selling drugs. This is about stopping one of the worst weapons ever created in the history of mankind. So I'll leave it there, and like, share, subscribe, and we will see you next time. Thank you.